Number 10. Super strength. When T'Challa became the Black Panther, he was enhanced by the heart-shaped herb. The herb was believed to be a gift from the Panther god, but was actually mutated by the vibranium meteorite which had crashed in Wakanda. This brought about a number of physical improvements, including super strength. Super strength is of course quite useful for someone who spends most of his time smacking nerds with mostly bare hands, allowing him to go hand to hand with some pretty darn powerful dudes. Number 9. Enhanced senses. This is a huge part of what makes Black Panther Black Panther. The herb allows T'Challa to see farther and more clearly than normal people, but it doesn't stop there. He can also see other parts of the spectrum, even able to see in ultraviolet and infrared, allowing him to see in the dark. He has enhanced hearing as well, but his sense of smell is very unique. He can memorize tens of thousands of distinct scents, allowing him to track friend and foe alike. The effects of the vibranium on the herb also allow him to sense vibranium wherever it may be. Plus, he has enhanced taste, which isn't super helpful in heroics, but he'd be great at a wine party. Number 8. Super durability. Another effect of the herb is that it gives T'Challa increased durability. His bones and muscles increased in density, essentially causing his body to become lightly armored. However, he takes his durability to new levels when he suits up, since his suit has vibranium woven into it, which helps to protect him against even the most dangerous of threats. Number 7. Enhanced reflexes and agility. Thanks to the good old heart-shaped herb, T'Challa also gained heightened reflexes and agility. This made his already incredible martial arts ability even more deadly, allowing him to see and react to movements of his opponent super quickly, as well as run at great speeds. Number 6. Healing factor. Black Panther has accelerated regeneration, able to heal much quicker than regular people since his body is so efficient. It isn't the craziest regeneration out there, he's nowhere near Deadpool's levels, but he can heal gashes and even broken bones significantly faster than the everyman. Which is good, because despite his durability and supersuit, the guy certainly takes punishment from time to time. Number 5. The knowledge of the Panthers. Another perk of becoming a Black Panther is that you gain all the knowledge and experience of the previous Black Panthers. Even though T'Challa already had a genius level intellect, this new knowledge made him even smarter, even more cunning, and even more skilled. This helped him invent incredible gadgets, which isn't surprising since he's basically Batman but with superpowers and more money. The only problem with this is he also has all the most embarrassing memories of the previous Panthers, which would make it really hard to fall asleep.
At number 10, we have Spider-Man's psychic connection to spiders. That's right, kind of like Ant-Man, but a weaker version. It comes out when Spider-Man's senses are enhanced to the point where he can start to sense spiders that are around him. So it means that he can empathize with them, but he can also encourage them to help him out. So not as hardcore as all the ants, taking over and helping out, but they can, assist a little bit. Kinda neat, had no idea. At number 9, we have a genius level intellect. He's nerdy and smart, and we definitely know that. We've seen that over the years a ton of times. But in Amazing Spider-Man number 588, it was stated that Peter Parker's IQ is higher than 250. Albert Einstein's is 160, so whoa, this guy is smart. Proof of this is all throughout the Spider-Man universe. He develops power-enhancing formulas, antidotes, he even hacks into Tony Stark's computer system to discover the Parker particle. So he's really, really smart. Up next, number 8, we have accelerated healing. He's no Wolverine or Deadpool. It's not like a really quick suddenly he's healing, but he's been beaten by the Hulk to a bloody pulp and survived it. He's gotten acid in the face and come back for it. He's even been burned so much that he's basically unrecognizable, has a night's sleep, and looks the same again. At number 7, we have camouflage / invisibility. Another Spider-Man, Miles this time, not Peter, similarly was bitten by a radioactive spider, but has a slightly different power set than Peter on account of his spider being infused with this enhanced version of the Oz formula. One of the drastically different ones is his ability to organically camouflage himself. And we're talking everything, his body, his clothing, he just naturally blends into his surroundings at a moment's notice, essentially becoming invisible. This is such a great ability in a fight. I mean, you hit them, you become invisible, you walk over to the side, boom, hit them again. It's great. At number 6, we have grows extra limbs. This is one of my favorites for sure, just even visually, it's just so fitting. Now, it's not like he can grow them whenever he wants. In a 1971 The Six Arms Saga, which was written by the late Stan Lee himself, Peter decided he didn't want to be a Spider-Man anymore. He didn't want the Spider-Man abilities, so he, using that wonderful intellect of his, creates a formula that's untested to get rid of his powers. After he drinks it, he falls asleep, has all these horrible dreams, and when he wakes up, he now has 6 arms. Whoops. I guess not the biggest genius ever, but hey, luckily a doctor helps him reverse it. So there you go.
Number 10, symbiosis. We learn in the series Web of Venom (Venom) that Wolverine was actually one of the first mutants to ever merge with a symbiote. He ends up linking his mind with the symbiote, who recalls memories of Nick Fury torturing it, causing them to attack Fury. Eventually the symbiote would be separated from Wolverine, though it would later speak its first words, seemingly as a result of their time together, and would save Logan's life while merged with another being. In the older Spider-Man game from 2008, Spider-Man Web of Shadows, it was also revealed that Wolverine was able to achieve symbiosis, inciting a fight between the player as Spider-Man and this version of Wolverine, merged with one of the symbiotes. Venom Wolverine. Number 9. Lycanthropy. That's right, at one point Wolverine was an actual wolf. Well, a werewolf. He was transformed by a woman named Nyssa, who saw in him her soulmate and wanted to turn him so that he would always be with her. Logan had all kinds of interesting and conflicting feelings for her, as he was with Mariko at the time, but still found himself attracted to Nyssa, who appealed more to his animalistic side. Nyssa bit him, and Logan found himself joining the pack, which was led by her brother, Malik the Alpha. This version of Logan literally caused him to transform into a wolf, which he described as like being in a state where you could see yourself but were unable to control yourself, sort of like watching TV. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your thoughts on Wolverine, his healing factor eventually healed him of his lycanthropy. Number 8. Memory suppression. If you know Wolverine's history, you're probably astonished to discover just how much he seems to have survived. He's been tortured countless times, suffered an insane amount of loss, and almost every event from his backstory is filled with a dramatic amount of tragedy. Yet he manages to persevere. Sure, human minds are capable of dealing with great amounts of mental trauma and stress, but the amount of sorrow and loss that Wolverine is forced to deal with is definitely on a super level. How does he stay sane? His healing factor. Yep, in the comics, this is why he also suffers from memory loss. His healing factor causes mental scar tissue to literally cover up painful memories by building up around his trauma center in his brain. This is even referred to in the X-Men film Days of Future Past, which swapped out Wolverine for Kitty Pryde when it came to who would be doing the time traveling, using the mental capacity of his healing factor as the excuse for why Wolverine would be sent back, as time travel is apparently very hard on your mind. In the comics, we discover that this is also why Logan does not remember his life as James Howlett, or his childhood friend, which he accidentally killed, Rose. Number 7. Vampirism. Wolverine becomes transformed by the vampire army after being bitten. While being a werewolf seems to be something his healing factor was capable of curing, vampirism isn't. His vampire side warps his mind, turning him against his fellow X-Men, and seemingly making him power hungry. Not too surprising, to be honest, as being a vampire basically grants Wolverine even stronger superpowers than before, and armed with his healing factor makes him almost undefeatable. Still, he only remains a vampire for a short while. Cyclops had his blood tested for immunity against the vampire virus, but while he did this, he also had Logan secretly injected with nanites that would disable his healing factor. Boom. Scott Summers activates those nanites when he goes up against Logan in order to cure him of said vampirism. While appearing to be pleased at regaining control of his free will and free of his vampiric nature, Logan also seems severely displeased at the fact that Scott did all of this without his permission. Come on, Scott, you should know, don't inject people with nanites before you ask them. Gotta get some permission first. Number 6. Phoenix Force. During the series Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, Logan finds himself teamed up with Peter Parker, as the two are forced to involuntarily ping-pong around time together. One of their adventures sees them go up against a planet that appears to be Dr. Doom. Wolverine gets his hands on the Phoenix gun and sacrifices himself to use it to blast apart Planet Doom. He is later resurrected and ends up attracting the attention of the Phoenix Force, which possesses him. Though he succumbs to the power momentarily, Logan's mind appears strong enough to keep the Force at bay, and he even manages later to resist it, giving Jean a run for her money somewhat. Like, geez, apparently it's that easy to just be like, no, not today, Phoenix Force. But only if you're Wolverine. You've like a scar tissue brain. It's actually surprising that his brain isn't huge when you think about it, with all that scar tissue. Number 5. Lie detection. The combination of Logan's heightened senses allow him to operate as a fantastic lie detector. He is able to recognize superheroes' secret identities by matching their scent, no matter how much Peter Parker wants to try and insist that Logan has it all wrong. Peter Parker's like, no, I'm not Spider-Man, oh no. And he can also detect the slightest changes in someone when they are sharing information. A change in heartbeat, tone of voice, or the fact that you could start to slightly sweat could be picked up by Wolverine and help him determine if you were lying or not. Probably another reason he is considered an expert spy. In other words, when confronted by Logan, you probably just want to be honest with him, lest you risk him going into a rage as a result of your perceived dishonesty. Ugh. Number 4. Hot claws. Sounds so ridiculous when I say it like that. After being resurrected, Logan found that he had access to a new ability as a result of going into his berserker rage. When Logan goes berserk, he becomes more animalistic and impulsive, less in control of himself and his emotions. This can be seen in the comics when Wolverine feels an intense sense of betrayal or loss, which sometimes sets him off into a rage. Think of the Barbarian class in Dungeons & Dragons, sort of like that. When he was resurrected, he found that going berserk would also cause his claws to go hot. They have been revealed to be hot enough to light fuel in the comics, and I imagine would be like fighting someone with a set of hot pokers attached to their arms. Pretty terrifying. But at least any wounds you received fighting Berserk Wolverine would be instantly cauterized, so that's a plus. You're not gonna bleed out probably. Still don't want to fight Berserk Wolverine, that seems crazy. Don't do it. Number 3. Hulk. Wolverine even had the Hulk's powers for a time, I know, though he sort of had to sacrifice his smarts for them, and kind of received them against his will. But still, he had them. After the leader and Dr. Aliana Alba get a hold of Wolverine and Bruce Banner, they transform them to take on Weapon H, Clay Cortez, known as Hulkverine. They become Hulkverines in their own right, but their mental capacity is reduced, turning them into rage-filled smashing and slashing machines. Snick, snick. Wolverine also has his hot claws in this form, and as such is a frightening foe to come up against while hulked out. He has no idea what's going on, he's got hot claws, he's big and green. Scary.
Number 4. Telepathic resistance. Black Panther is insanely disciplined, in full control of both body and mind. This has obvious effects, making him one of the best fighters in the world, but also seems to give him some serious protection from telepathy. We've seen him resist telepaths a few times. In Cable number 54, Cable's strong telepathy could barely notice him hiding in the trees, and in Original Sin number 4, Emma Frost described his mind as, quote, a bear trap wrapped in barbed wire that someone set on fire. So maybe don't try reading his mind. Number 3. Hypercosmic awareness. After being exposed to the mind of Galactus, T'Challa started having visions both while awake and sleeping. He began to be able to perceive the universe on the cosmic scale, similar to how Galactus sees it. He could see the future and sense the cage around the Marvel universe as well as the others outside of it. But this wasn't the only time he saw things he shouldn't. Number 2. Premonitions. After being exposed to a amount of pure vibranium thanks to the evil Jakara, T'Challa began having premonitions of events that had not yet occurred. He realized that he had gained some sort of clairvoyance, even able to identify drawings on cards while blindfolded, and he knew when his aides were in danger. However, just a few issues later, this was retconned / re-explained as a vibranium mound simply heightening his already heightened senses, letting him sense crisis points, which is kind of stupid, but it's fine with me because it would have been ridiculous if he also had clairvoyance. Number 1. Raising the dead. After making a bargain with the Panther goddess, Black Panther became the King of the Dead, and gained yet another amazing ability. He could raise the dead to do his bidding. Yeah, not really something you normally associate with heroes, but a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. T'Challa later used this ability to lead an army of undead soldiers, Hulks, and Thors to attack Doom's Battleworld Fortress in Secret Wars number 7. It's believed that his other powers were enhanced as well when he became King of the Dead, but I'm not too sure about that. Oh, and he had the Infinity Gauntlet too, but that's a story for another time.
For number 5, we have equilibrium. We see this all the time throughout all Spider-Man, but I don't think we really register it. He has this excellent equilibrium. We can see him jumping around all the time, sticking to things, and what we don't realize is that his body is naturally adjusting at all times, keeping him upright on even the most oddly angled surfaces and after lots of those much-loved Spidey acrobatics. Oh my god, speaking of acrobatics in Spider-Man, have you guys played the new Spider-Man game? It's so good! The web slinging they finally have down, the combat system, it's so beautiful. It's just like, oh, it's like you're playing an action movie. You should definitely check that out. At number 4, we have bulletproof. Okay, it's not that he actually physically becomes bulletproof, but he became the Iron Spider, and that's that suit that Tony Stark gave him or built for him. So not only was it bulletproof, but it also boasted other things like these extra metal arms and stingers. Thank you, Mr. Stark. You're a lovely man. At number 3, we have one I really didn't see coming. Cosmic power. That's right. In Spectacular Spider-Man number 158, Spidey goes cosmic. He's bestowed with unipower to defeat these unusual and extra difficult bad guys. He gets godlike strength, he can shoot energy beams from his hand that are strong enough to destroy a planet. What? Watch out, Shazam. Watch out, Captain Marvel. There's a new kid in town. Number 2 is one we have heard of many superheroes having, but haven't really thought about Spider-Man having it, and it is super speed. Yes, he has great agility and spidey senses, so he looks fast, but he's been known to outrace speeding cars or travel the entire length of Manhattan in 10 minutes. 10 minutes! That's like going over 100 miles per hour or something like that. He has been so fast sometimes that he is like a blur. He'll like come into a room, take out a bunch of people, and no one even sees him. So I don't know, maybe the Flash and him should like exchange numbers, hang out sometime.
Number 2, Feral State. The 90s was an admittedly weird time for the comics. It was during this time we were introduced to a side of Wolverine that we had not seen yet, and it was revealed that his claws were in fact simply made out of bone. We learned this after Magneto stripped his skeleton of adamantium. This also triggered a mutation in Wolverine wherein he began to resort to a more feral and bestial state as time progressed, even losing the appearance of his nose in some panels, looking more like the animal he gets his codename from, a Wolverine. He would eventually regain his adamantium skeleton and return to the Wolverine we knew before. Not necessarily calm, but more logical than that of his feral state self. It would appear that this ability was only accessible when the adamantium is removed from his skeleton, and yet we also see Logan as James when his claws are merely bone, and yet this doesn't seem to be as great of an issue. In other words, this seemed to be a power state that writers would rather we forget about. Probably like Spider-Man's Clone Saga. Just kidding, that was a cheap blow. Also terrible thing in the 90s though. Number 1, Telepathic Resistance. Similar to how his mental suppression works, Wolverine also has a wall of armor in his mind when it comes to psychic attacks. Originally in the comics this was explained as him having level 9 psi shields installed by Professor Xavier, but over time his ability to shield himself from psychic damage began to become even greater. As seen in the 2003 Wolverine volume issue 46, Emma is even ready to disregard the shields that Xavier put inside Logan's mind, declaring that she could more than handle them as a level 10 telepath. However, later she seems unable to prevent Wolverine from charging Scott in X-Men Original Sin, and Logan shares that his psychic scar tissue is to thank for that. His healing factor has helped him to build up a resistance after previous attacks on his mind. So the more you try to psychically attack him, the stronger he will become against psychic attacks, apparently. Pretty powerful considering that he's mostly a strength-based mutant.